Is the Hawaii real estate market about to boom like Dogecoin or crash and burn like nothing we've seen before? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you a handful of different concepts so you can understand how the real estate market works. We're going to look at some data and then put those two together so that we can actually put a forecast on what we think is going to happen, whether it's going to boom or whether it's going to bust. Stick around to get all the details. See you on the other side. All right, guys, like I mentioned in this video, we are going to go over what my forecast is for the future of the real estate market, give you a little update on the real estate market out here in Hawaii and whether I believe the market is going to boom or bust. And not only just tell you, I'm going to explain to you the concepts, look at the data, and then put the two together and tell you what my professional opinion is. Now, I'd love to hear your comments, what you think the market's actually gonna do, so make sure you put them in the comment section down below. But if this is your first time here, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Patrick Longley. I'm a licensed real estate agent out here in Hawaii and have been for nearly a decade, helping buyers, sellers, and investors with their real estate needs. So if you have any questions or just wanna talk about the market, talk about real estate, feel free to reach out to me. Got my contact information right here, or you can directly DM me on any of my social media platforms. With that being said, let's get into understanding the concepts of what actually controls the real estate market and why prices either go up or down. So the real estate market essentially comes right back down to economics 101 when we were in school: supply and demand. Those are the two main things. Supply, which is like the amount of homes that are actually on the market, and demand. How many buyers are actually showing up at your open house or actually giving you offers? How many people are actually interested in that property? That is what controls the market. If you don't have a lot of homes and you got 30 buyers coming up, what's gonna happen? It's gonna drive the price up. Well, if you've got 1,000 homes and only 3 buyers, well, they've got options. They're not that interested. It's gonna drive the price down, forcing sellers to have to drop the price. That is simple terms of what controls the real estate market. But we wanna understand some deeper concepts so the data, when we look at it, actually makes sense. So let's take it a step further. Okay, so now that we understand that the real estate market is controlled by supply and demand, what controls supply and demand? Well, it's a handful of things, but in this current situation, both supply and demand are being controlled by interest rates. Now, how does interest rate control both of supply and demand? Well, when it comes to demand, it's pretty simple. If you were to go buy a house and interest rates are at 3%, everybody and their brother is going to want to buy a house. So you have lots of demand, lots of people borrowing money, lots of people looking to buy a house, lots of people making it very competitive and driving the price up. That's how demand is controlled by interest rates. Now, how is interest rates controlling supply? Well, we're in a very unique situation right now where actually 83% of homeowners right now have an interest rate lower than 5%, and 64% of homeowners have an interest rate lower than 4%. So why would any seller in their right mind, if they don't have to sell their property, get into the market and go have to buy a property at a 6 or 7% interest rate? So it's just gonna be more expensive for them to buy a house that's probably smaller than what they already have. If they don't have to sell, they won't sell. And that has created the inventory lock that we're seeing. Lots of sellers that don't have to sell are simply saying it doesn't make sense. I'm not gonna sell my property, which is clogging up the opportunity for more inventory to come to the market, keeping supply or inventory low. Now, what we have going on right now is supply and demand is kind of balancing right now. It's got this little balancing act where we have some buyers come to the table, some people waiting on the sidelines, sellers that are kind of locked into their property, so they're not selling their property unless they have to. So we've seen the market kind of stable out. But what do we see happening in the future? That's where we're gonna get into the next concept, which is what controls interest rates. Now, there's many factors that control interest rates, but if we wanted to simplify it, it really comes down to our good friend, Papa Powell. Papa Powell is the man at the Fed who helps make the decisions on what the Fed wants to do with interest rates, whether they want to increase them or decrease them. And in the past, the simple reason why the Fed would bring interest rates up or bring them down is if the economy was doing really well, they said, hey, we can slow down the economy. Let's increase interest rates, make money a little bit more expensive. Not everybody needs it right now because we don't want to create hyperinflation, which we'll get over in a second. Or if the economy is not doing well, they'll drop interest rates, make it very cheap to borrow money and spark the economy, help people spend money, help people invest, help business owners borrow money so they can hire people to help their business grow or help the economy grow. But at the end of the day, what the Fed only cares about is not the real estate market, not the stock market, not how much money you have in your pocket. They only care about two things. That's going to be inflation and the unemployment rate. Their goal for inflation is to keep it at about 2%, We were at a high peak of 9.1%, but we are trickling down. We're at about 2.9% right now, so it's going in the right direction. And unemployment, we are seeing is actually increasing. We're at about 4.1, and we want to stay under 5%, but we definitely see the trajectory going up. And this is what's actually most likely going to push the Fed to drop interest rates. And we're already seeing it happening. So in theory, if interest rates come down, we should see more buyers come to the table, which should push up the values of properties and how many people are looking to actually buy a property. So the Fed is playing this balancing act right now where they want inflation to go down, which they are successfully accomplishing right now by jacking up interest rates to like 7-8% for a mortgage. But they want to make sure that they don't make it so expensive for businesses. But what we've seen is that has slowed down the economy almost too much, where it's very difficult for businesses to borrow money and hire people. So how do they make it cheaper? So what do businesses do? What's the first thing that they drop in regards to expenses? Employees, which is starting to increase the unemployment rate, which the Fed doesn't want. They want to bring down inflation, but they don't want unemployment to go over 5%. That's kind of their mark. And now what we're seeing is that is starting to increase. As you can see in this chart right here, we're seeing that we are seeing unemployment increase. So they are most likely going to be forced to drop rates, which they already have discussed that they're going to do in September, and most likely multiple times this year and next year and the following year, to ensure that we actually don't go into a deep, dark recession. So now that we understand these concepts of what actually controls the real estate market, really coming down to interest rates and who controls the interest rates and why they make decisions on whether interest rates go up or down, let's look at the data to see what it's telling us about what's happening in the economy and why I truly believe that rates are going to come down, which is going to push prices up. Okay guys, so we discussed the different concepts. Now let's take the data and what we're seeing out there and see if these concepts hold true and help us forecast what we believe is going to actually happen so that you can make the best decision if you're selling a property or if you're sitting on the sidelines and waiting for either a market crash or whether it's a good time to buy. Let's take a look at what we think is going to happen with home prices based on the data. So we need to start from the top of the pyramid and understand what is actually going to affect interest rates. That's going to be the Fed. And what does the Fed actually care about? They don't care about the stock market. They don't care about the real estate market. They only care about two things. That is going to be inflation and the unemployment rate. So as we can see, this is an inflation chart, and we can see that inflation at its peak was at 9.1. That is when they jacked up interest rates to slow down the economy, make it more expensive, not only to purchase homes, but more importantly, more expensive for businesses to borrow money and hire people, and basically tighten the economy so people would stop spending so much money, creating inflation. And surprisingly enough, it actually worked. We can see that the inflation basically fell off a cliff very quickly and very sharply, went down to 3.2, bounced up and down, and we can see we're now at 2.9. This is great to see because what the Fed has done has actually worked, but they were talking about holding rates for longer, but the new report just came out for the second thing that's important to them, which is the jobs report when it comes to unemployment. So we can see that unemployment, they generally want to keep under 4%. And we can see that we're starting to climb above that. So what they're going to be forced to do is to actually have to cut rates because they don't want us to go into a deep, dark recession where businesses start laying everybody off because they can't afford to pay people, hire new people, what have you, which tightens too much and puts us in a very bad spot as an economy. And Papa Powell does not want that. He does want to get a hold of inflation, what he has done successfully. And now he doesn't want to put us into a deep, dark recession hole. So we can see anywhere on the media, there's all talks about it. You can also look at the CME watch tool, which gives you a percentage of whether they're going to do a rate cut, how much of a rate cut they're going to do. Now take this data with a grain of salt. It can change from day to day, depending on when the meeting is coming up, what expectations are. But we can see that right now, there is a 62% chance that we're going to see a quarter-point rate cut and a 37% of a 50 basis point rate cut. Okay. Now, when I say quarter point or 50 basis point, if you have 1%, a quarter point would go from 1% to 0.75. Okay. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Now, as you go further down the line, we can see that there's more discussions of further rate cuts happening. They're most likely, they're discussing possibly 3 rate cuts. That's 1 cut at every meeting before the end of the year, and potentially future cuts in 2025 and 2026. But I just want to kind of look and forecast what are they doing now and what do we think they're going to do in the next 3 to 6 months. It's very hard to dictate what's going to happen, especially with everything that's happening in the world. But I do believe that they need to get a hold of this unemployment situation. And the best way to do so, now that they've gotten a hold of inflation, is to start cutting rates. And you can see in the media, they're already talking about teeing up the cut rates, the CME watch tools backing that up. So again, depending on the information you're taking in, it doesn't matter what channel you go to, everybody agrees that the rate cuts are coming, and they're most likely coming sooner rather than later, like they just said in the past. Now with rate cuts, this is going to affect interest rates. Now we see that at our peak, interest rates were close to almost 8%. And we've seen that they've come down, kind of stabilized, and we've seen that they've had a huge drop just in the last few days. And we know, I've made a past video in the past, you can see right here, called the rule of 10x, that every 1% that interest rates go up or down, affordability for buyers goes up or down to 10%. So if you qualified for $1 million at a 7% interest rate, if it goes down just to 6% at that same monthly payment, you now have purchasing power that goes up 10%, which would be 1,100,000. That opens up a lot more options for you and can bring a lot of new buyers to the table, increasing the demand. But the challenging part is the second part of the formula, which is supply. There is not enough supply that's going to crash the market. There's not enough supply that's going to drop prices. And I don't think that supply is going to be coming anytime soon. We may see a small amount of it trickle in, and we have been seeing it trickle in. But as soon as those buyers come to the table, because the interest rates are going to be dropping, we are going to see that inventory get sucked up real quick. And if we actually look at some of the data, you'll see that that's verified. So another thing we have to keep in mind that's locking up inventory is sellers' situation. They are locked into their house because 82% of homeowners right now have a mortgage rate below 5%. And 62 have a rate below 4%. What seller in their right mind that doesn't have to sell would sell their property to get back in the market when they had a 5 or a 4% rate to go buy a property with a 6 or 7% rate? It wouldn't make sense for them, for most sellers, if they didn't have to sell. So that is what's locking up inventory. That is what's stabilizing the market. But what's going to make the market pop is when those rates come down. Now, again, I do believe that inventory will come out. More sellers will get a little bit closer to the rate that they maybe bought at and said, hey, you know what? I bought at 5%, rates are now at 5.5%, 6%. I can deal with that because I need a bigger property and I'm okay with that monthly payment. So we will see inventory slowly come out, but I don't think it's going to be flooded. It's not going to crash the market. And a lot of buyers are going to come out of the bushes because rates are coming down and are going to eat it up, pushing prices. Okay, guys, well, don't take my word for it. Let's look at the actual data in Oahu and what we're seeing happening. We're going to look at not only the prices, we're going to look at inventory, days on market, because it does paint a picture for us. Now, at the peak of the market, the median sales price for a single family home was $1,130,000. We can see that there was a correction right when those rates got jacked up. It slowed down the market. People started to get used to those interest rates. So it just slowly started to creep up, but we can see that it is already starting to climb, and we are almost at exactly what we were at our peak. So I do truly believe that because inventory is going to stay pretty much locked up, unless we get below 5 or 4%, which we probably will get to in maybe the next year or so. But now is a good time to get in because we can see the trajectory of the market is going up. We want to ride that train up. I don't believe it's going to crash. I will die on that hill. And by all means, put in the comment section down below what you think is actually going to happen. But we already see the trajectory going up. We already see the rates are starting to come down. And what I'm telling my clients and what I just did myself on the last purchase I made is I'm buying a property at the right price. I'm doing a 2-in-1 buy down, not a fixed buy down, so that I can get my rate from, instead of 6.5, I'm getting it at 4.5 the first year, 5.5 the second year, and 6.5 the third year. And most likely I'm going to refi by the first or second year and lock in that rate, because we can already see the trajectory of where rates are going, and they're going down. So there's an opportunity here to refi in a year or so down here. That is what my plan of action is, because you can't change the price you purchase the property at, but you can change your rate. So keep that in mind, guys. So again, guys, we're seeing that lock-in effect where inventory is pretty much staying in the same spot here. We're not seeing this huge trajectory up as we saw here from 2022 to 2023 with the amount of homes for sale and them staying for sale. And if we look at months of supply, this is basically looking at how much inventory is actually getting put on the market and then sold. Now, when it comes to months of supply, how this formula works is basically if you had 1,000 homes, how long does it take for all 1,000 homes to be sold? we can see when the market was crazy, all 1,000 homes would be sold in just over a month, which is extremely fast. A balanced market is generally 3 months. And we can see that inventory has been increasing, properties have been sitting, so they haven't been getting sucked up as fast. And we have seen it slow down a bit. And we can see that it has slowed down enough where there's still opportunity, but we are starting to see prices go up. So this is the time where you can get in before it gets crazy. But I do believe the inventory is going to stay pretty locked up until those rates get below at least 5%. So we will see prices slowly increase. As soon as we see interest rates go down quicker, we're going to see them actually go up a lot faster. Now, days on market, this will dictate how fast something actually sells, which can give you a good temperature gauge of the market. We can see the days on market on average for single family homes was 29 days. It has gone down to 16 days. Again, reiterating that the market is starting to pick up and it is a good time to get in before this gets even crazier. Property selling in 16 days is absolutely insane. Property selling in 16 days is very quick. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens when interest rates go down, because I think it's just going to get way more competitive. So you need to ask yourself, although interest rates are high now, they are coming down. Do you believe the interest rates are going to go up or go down? That is really going to dictate prices. And if you can answer that question confidently, that is the route that you should go. If they're going down, get into the market. If you believe they're going up, stay on the sidelines. It's really that simple, guys. So again, that is what I believe is happening. That is what the writing on the wall is telling us, that the market is going to go up as soon as these interest rates continue to fall, as more buyers will come to the table. And if you don't want to compete against 10, 20, or 30 buyers, then now is probably a better time to get in than 6 months from now. So that is my forecast of what I think is going to happen in the next 6 months to a year. I believe that the market is going to go up. It already is starting to trend up, as we saw on this chart right here. And that pretty much wraps it up. So as you guys saw in the data, rates are coming down significantly. Unemployment is increasing, which the Fed doesn't want, and that's why they're going to be forced to actually drop rates. And we can see inflation is going down in the direction that the Fed does want. So they're playing this balancing act, and they are going to be forced to have to drop rates. And what's that going to do? That's going to bring more buyers to the table. And until we get to that 4 or 5% rate, I don't see us flooding the market with a lot of inventory. So we're not going to see a crash that some people will talk about. We might have a little bit more inventory come up, but it's most likely going to get swallowed up by all these new buyers coming out of the bushes. So I do truly believe that we are going to see kind of a Nike swoosh recovery in the real estate market, where prices are going to go up. I don't see a market crash coming. I don't see it even really going down a little bit. I think from now on, we're going to start to see the market go up. So if you are a buyer and you can afford the down payment and you can afford that interest rate right now, it would be in your best interest to get the property at a good price and refinance later, or even take it another step. And if you want to watch my video right here that goes into it a little bit deeper, you can utilize a strategy called the 2-in-1 buy down, which will buy you time to wait for the Fed to drop rates, because it's inevitable that they're going to have to drop rates. And if you use a 2-in-1 buy down, you can drop your rate from a 6.5 to a 4.5 the first year, 5.5 the second year. And by that third year, you're most likely refinancing and locking in a lower rate. Again, you can watch this video right here that goes over it in more detail, but that's kind of 30,000 feet up of different strategies you can use. So again, I believe the market is going to go up. And I think if you are in a position to buy, it would be a good time right now. If you're a seller, I would suggest wait. If you can wait 6 to 12 months, I would suggest wait, because we will see more buyers coming to the table, and that will create a lot more demand and push your value up and your price that you'll take home up. Okay guys, that's my pitch. I am just taking the data, I'm taking concepts, putting them together. I would love to hear what you think. Do you think the market's crashing? Do you think it's stabilizing? Do you think it's not going to do anything at all? Put them in the comment section down below. These are the type of videos where I really want to hear from my people, what they actually believe is going to happen. And if you want to talk to me directly about what's going on in the real estate market, feel free to reach out. Got my contact information right here, or you can directly DM me on any of my social media platforms. Now, one last thing, if you got any value out of this content, if you guys could do me a huge favor, smash that like button, as well as click the subscribe and notification bell so you get notified whenever I drop videos just like this. And with that being said, I'm Patrick with PatrickOnlineRealty.com, powered by eXp Realty. Hope you have a beautiful day. I'll talk to you soon. Aloha.